Okay, let us start with file item 1, which is an action item for us. We'll start with the report on the contracts.
This item's to approve the cargo handling equipment projects under the Proposition 1B Goods Movement Emission Reduction Program. Prop 1B program is currently in the 5th and final funding cycle, with SCAQMD receiving about $400 million of the $1 billion authorized for projects throughout the state. For the final funding cycle, CARB allocated about $14 million in funds for ships at berth and cargo handling equipment projects. In 2016, the board released a program announcement and approved awards for almost $8 million in funding. The board subsequently released a second program announcement for the remaining $6.1 million in funds. Since the program announcement is closed, staff has completed evaluating the projects and are working with CARB with finalizing compliance checks and ranking all the projects. The next 2 slides summarize all the eligible project proposals. There are 3 freight facility projects in Wilmington, Bakersfield, and Pomona, and 2 projects located at ports, one at the Port of LA and one at the Port of Long Beach. Projects include the replacement of diesel yard trucks with zero-emission yard trucks, replacement of lifts with zero-emission lifts, and conversion or replacement of diesel rubber-tired gantry cranes to electric power. The maximum funding for all the projects is about $2.7 million, and estimated reductions from the projects are 11.9 tons per year of NOx.
Slides, please. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Got it. Okay.
Is the chair there? We've started.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay, we're in the middle of the first item.
Thank you, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay. The estimated reductions from the projects are about 11.9 tons per year of NOx and 0.4 tons per year of PM2.5. For the remaining $3.4 million, staff intends to work with CARB to identify potential projects to utilize the funds, subject to AQMD board approval at a later date.
Any questions, colleagues, on item 1?
I don't think he was quite finished.
Well, staff recommends that contracts be executed for the projects contingent on CARB approval.
Okay, Joe, now we're done.
Follow on the slides here.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Mayor Garcetti and Mayor Garcia have both indicated an interest in taking some actions at LA Long Beach about equipment, and I wondered how this might interface, or whether anybody knows the exact plans that the cities were thinking of, and how that might interface with these contracts in any way. If you know, Greg.
So these are all zero emission technology, so it fits right in with their plans. Of course, as you know, their plan was to complete, I think it was a complete switch over to zero emissions by 2030. We're hoping that we can.
The trucks by 35,
But
the
the
handling
yard
equipment by 30.
So we're hoping that this will accelerate that timetable, if we can get the technologies in place, show that they work in use, and then get them to adopt at a faster rate.
Great, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Kuehl. Any other questions on item 1 before us?
Yes, I have a question. This is Dwight. My question is regarding the Bakersfield facility and exactly why we're funding that particular item. Since it's, if this was trucks coming in and out of the basin, it would make sense, but since they're forklifts, I'm guessing they're going to stay in Bakersfield. They're not going to be coming down the freeway.
Yes, with Proposition 1B specifically, there are 5 corridors, projects being implemented with 5 air districts. We do not have the basically authority to only fund projects within our basin. Based on ARB guidelines, these are statewide projects. So an applicant from Bakersfield may apply to us, and we have to fund those projects if they qualify for the program.
Okay.
On Moyer, we can be restricted. On Moyer, we only fund projects within our basin, but for Prop 1B, we don't have that leeway.
Sure. So the other districts have the same
Yes.
requirement,
Yes.
basically,
It's
as
state
well,
law.
right? So, yeah, it's, I don't know, I'd love to see some parity there. So if we can encourage some of our applicants who maybe don't
Apply to them.
get a
So hang
grant
on,
to
I'm-
apply to them,
Yes, that
that'd be
happens.
great.
Throughout for the truck projects, actually.
Sure.
It happens, there are crisscross applications.
Yeah, and the truck projects make the most sense, like I said, because they're going in and out of all of
Yes.
the districts, but the handling equipment station, it's staying stationary for the most
I
part, within the facilities, so. Okay, that was my only question.
Thank you, Dwight. Any other questions on item number 1 before us? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve item 1.
I'll move the item.
Second?
A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kuhl,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell. Aye. Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you. Colleagues, unless you want to pull any of these items, I'd like to take items 2, 3, 4 on consent.
I just had one quick question about number 3, and I was wondering if you could
We'll
explain.
hold 3 on the desk.
Okay.
How about 2 and 4 on consent?
Okay.
Hearing none, motion to approve item 2 and 4 on consent.
Second,
Motion and a second. Roll call vote on items 2 and 4, please.
hold on one second. Supervisor Rutherford has a question.
Oh,
I
yes.
just have a quick question. For where is Coast Rail Services located?
Which item?
The audio's not that clear. Try that again, Supervisor.
Where is Coast Rail Services located?
Coast Rail.
Coast Rail Service, that's in Anaheim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any roll call vote on items 2 and 4?
Supervisor Kuhl,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Okay, let's hear number 3. Item number 3 before us,
Again,
held for Mr. Robinson.
I just had a quick question. I was wondering why the Port of LA needed to
Yes,
pull out
exactly. Why?
of funding there.
Yeah, so that was proposed to go through their TAP program, the Technology Advancement Program. They had rearranged some priorities, so they were looking at helping us with the on-road ultra-low NOx diesel project. And so they moved that up in priority, and so they didn't feel they could fund both, so they opted to fund the diesel project as opposed to this one. This is more of a longer-term play, so they just had competing priorities.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and I was just wondering if it had any relation to, Toyota's getting a test model.
Not that they've told us.
If they saw some duplication of effort or anything like that. I mean, I know our desire is to try to see as many technologies out there as
Correct.
possible, but if they see one that's already, essentially being tested, I was wondering if that played a part.
Not that they've
Not that you're aware.
explicitly said, but I just want to point out that the Port of LA has been a really strong partner on
Sure.
many, many different projects. So having them reprioritize is probably not an issue.
I was just wondering if they had some.
That was, thank you, Dwight. That was my concern as well, and I was assured by Matt that this is a rare occurrence. Happy to hear the Port of LA continues to participate in a number of key projects that pushes the lowering of emissions at our port complex.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on item 3 before you? Hearing none, roll call vote on item number 3.
I'll move the item.
Second?
Supervisor
We have a
Kuhl,
motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Kuhl,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you. Item number 5 before us, and I'd like to hear a presentation on this. I do know that in moving forward, it's important, as I told staff, it's important to celebrate these types of successes as it relates to our most vulnerable, our kids. in our respective school districts. I know we've replaced hundreds of buses throughout the district. But when I ask my own friends who are teachers, they're not aware of it. Let's like to work on an announcement in this agenda item. So if you can present, Fred, item number 5.
Sure, of course. Can I get the slides, please? Okay. This item is to recognize funds from ARB and replace older high-emitting diesel school buses. The funding for this is part of the year 19 Carl Moyer program.
I have to announce it now.
Sorry?
I've been told I need to announce that on this item. I don't have a financial interest, but I'm required to identify for the record that I'm a member of the board of California Air Resources Board, and that's involved in this item. This is the new
Thank you.
rule for me.
Right.
Until we decide for sure.
10%, approximately 10% of the total Carl Moyer funds are considered as, before they used to be considered as multi-air district funds, where projects would be funded throughout, in between air districts. Starting this year, that fund is called State Reserve Funds, and the board at the Air Resources Board has decided to allocate these funds for replacement of school buses statewide. And these are for older school buses that either they get PM extension for the regulation, either by putting retrofits on them, or there is a reasonable technical reason that the particulate matter cannot be installed on those buses. But they are mostly pre-1994 high-emitting diesel buses. About $6.5 million was available statewide, and we applied for those funds. And ARB has basically selected us to replace buses at the LA Unified. These were buses that were entered into ARB's database and were approved by ARB and selected for this funding. So the project is to replace 8 pre-1994 diesel school buses with new natural gas school buses certified at 0.2 gram NOx. So each bus will receive $146,000 for replacement. We get $78,000 for administrative funds. And our recommendation to the board is to the committee is to basically approve recognition of these funds from Air Resources Board and replacement of these buses. Also, I want to follow up on our conversation we had with Council Member Buscaino yesterday when you talked about LA Unified. Just for your information, I wanted to provide the information that from the beginning of the school bus program that we started in 2001, we have provided approximately $110 million to LA Unified, and we have replaced about 700 school buses with LA Unified already, and retrofitted over 300 of the newer buses. This is just information item based on our conversation yesterday.
Great.
Fred, any questions on the item before you? Okay, hearing none, motion to approve item 5.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kuehl,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving along the agenda, colleagues, I understand item number 6 has been withdrawn and will be heard at a future committee meeting. If I can direct your attention now to item number 7. And Lisa, for a presentation.
Good afternoon, Lisa Mirasola. And the item I would like to present is the California Fuel Cell Partnership Executive Board meeting. This is a basically receive and file information item. So just to repeat the goals for the California Fuel Cell Partnership for 2017, these are high-level goals, and the partnership has filled out a detailed program for implementing these goals this year. The main purpose of this agenda item there we go, is to basically brief you on the April Executive Board public meeting Dr. Parker chaired the meeting and provided opening remarks, especially noting progress over the last year in fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen stations deployed in California, and a couple of pictures just of recent openings in Riverside and South Pasadena. Three main topics on the agenda. So the executive board identified different strategies for developing a vision for going beyond the currently funded California co-funded 100 stations. So basically developing a vision for how to transition to a commercial market and providing advanced opportunities for renewable hydrogen, and heard perspectives on commercialization from around the world. So trying to incorporate these and marking our progress against other strategies around the world. So the business meeting action items included basically a review of the program from 2016, noting progress, and the focus on 2017 will be enhancing value to members and encouraging new members to join, and especially also re-engaging former energy sector members. So the board also agreed on meeting dates for the following year. And new assignments included basically integrating the executive board feedback that was provided at this public meeting into the development of this vision going forward. And they also are trying to develop better ways to track progress around the world. And so that would be available hopefully through the California Fuel Cell Partnership, potentially as kind of a dashboard or some kind of a website comparison. And just to highlight a few recent events from the last quarter of 2016 and the first quarter of this year, California cities basically had a display of Toyota Mirai and a booth there for outreach, as well as the first quarter there was emergency responder training that's periodic and really focused on where new stations are opening up in the near term, and also some outreach in the environmental justice community in our region. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Joe, I have a question.
Thank you, Lisa.
I have a question.
Colleagues, question?
Yes, please, Joe. It's Sheila.
Supervisor, floor is yours.
Thank you, council member. I don't really understand this technology very well. Are fuel cells contained and therefore replaced when you run out, or are they refillable?
You refuel with hydrogen. We have a station here in Diamond Bar, so we can.
And how is the hydrogen produced?
There are many ways to produce the hydrogen, just as similar to producing electricity. So our goal is to increase the amount of renewables in that hydrogen, but it can be produced also by.
But it has to be commercially produced so far, right?
Yes, there are a number of producers, and there are new station developers coming into the market to help dispense the fuel.
Have you seen any proposals, or even sort of blue sky proposals, for the individual production of hydrogen by breaking down water?
Yes, there are electrolysis stations. The one in Riverside comes to mind.
Right, but that's big. I'm thinking of something I could do at home. I'm not saying it exists. I'm just wondering, it just seems to me.
Actually,
I wonder
Honda
if we
had
break
worked,
down, water.
Honda
Is
has
the
been
hydrogen
working
option?
on that.
Who is?
Honda
Uh-huh.
had done some research on a home fueling station. This is kind of a follow-on to their home fueling for natural gas.
Right.
They made some progress, but part of it's cost and the market for it.
So electrolysis typically is not very efficient, and it can be really expensive, but now with the duck curve and the excess renewables, there's a potential that it could start to be more cost effective. But the main way that they're doing it now is with steam methane reformation, which is done for the petrochemical industry. There's a hydrogen pipeline that runs underneath the ground in Torrance. So they can produce it at large scale very inexpensively, and so that's where most of the hydrogen is being delivered today. It's by trucks that then go to stations to deliver tanks.
Yeah, I mean, as former president of my junior high school science fiction club. And a member of the technology committee, kind of about, a little bit about kind of what's next.
Yeah.
I'm more and more interested in the ability to generate energy sort of on our own. And people are doing it to some extent with solar panels on their roofs, right? You have to buy that, but then it makes it for you, theoretically. And I'm just wondering whether there's been any advance that you've heard of in sort of the same way for generating hydrogen to refill your, fuel cell. But I guess the answer is kind of no, that it really has to be done in a larger way.
It's generally more cost effective on a larger scale,
Right?
but there could be further progress on the
Did
smaller
Honda
scale.
develop a way to produce it using solar panels
Yeah,
and
the
then
solar- yes,
electrolysis,
right.
which could be a home application?
It could be.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it was easily done.
Mhm.
Okay, but that was an experimental thing that they've done a few years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
I just had a quick question of whether or not there's any discussions about this, the freezing to the cars when they're fueling, and is there some discussion about how that's
Oh, really?
so?
No, we brought that up to, at the Fuel Cell Partnership
Yeah,
and the station providers. Wayne was saying, talking to him quite a few times. They understand it, that this is an issue. The problem, there's only one nozzle.
One nozzle
a
provider.
nozzle that is certified, and so they're working on, all the OEMs are working to do a research program, because they know it's an issue. So they're
Okay,
working on it.
yeah, I mean, as long as they're working on it, but I think everyone who's driving one right now is an early adopter who, really believes in the technology, so they're willing to deal with some of the pitfalls, but, long term, it could have some negative
It's
consequences.
gonna be a big issue in the Northeast, for sure.
Oh, absolutely, but, yeah, it seems like also it's the, not just the weather itself, but the frequency of use. So, if someone pulls up and fills up, and then there's a car right behind it that does it again, then it's already
Right.
kind of cooled, whereas if no one's been there for half an hour,
Right.
it's probably thawed out a little bit, so.
I was at
Yeah.
UC Irvine, and Air Products was changing out the nozzle, and they said they were going to be introducing more of a nitrogen blanket to try to break that seal, I guess, or make sure it doesn't freeze onto it. But I know the last 2 times I've filled up at night, it's frozen. And one time there were 2 people waiting, and somebody got out and he was trying to pull on it as well. I'm just like, yeah, good luck. And we just, it's
Well,
frustrating.
Yeah, long-term concern might be that the nozzles themselves, start, coming apart some way.
Yep.
So.
Matt suggested I use a flame to try to. I wanted to jump on top of it to try to break
Yeah,
that
we put a
seal.
butane torch out there.
Yeah, just to
Yeah, right.
unfreeze it.
So what do you do when it?
Battery-operated hair dryer, maybe.
Well, the first time I called Matt, and that wasn't very helpful. He said, yes, yeah, that happens. Thank you.
So do you just wait, or?
Typically wait, sometimes if you push in and then pull out, sometimes it helps break the seal.
But it's hard to push in when it's
Yeah.
frozen. And it's like ice all over it, and you don't get a really good grip on it. And then when you do, you're like, and then you're just like, I know this is going to do a sudden release, and I'm going to be flat on my rear end. So you just wait. I don't know what you.
Indeed.
You just wait.
Lisa, I had a question, if I
Yes.
may.
Go ahead.
On accelerating the commercialization, I understand in your report in this last meeting you're looking at developing or envisioning 100 stations. Have any timelines have been set to achieve that goal?
Yes, the California Energy Commission is co-funding the development of the first 100 stations, and their funding goes through 2023. They're trying to accelerate that to bring the stations online by 2020 so the automakers can ramp up the placement of vehicles faster. But it's that transition after the current AB8 funding for those hydrogen stations. How is that transition going to work?
Understood. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Always good to set ambitious goals, as both of our mayors have indicated. earlier this week. But without talking about it and setting goals, then nothing will ever happen. So I appreciate this. It's a receive and file, colleagues. Item 7. Any other questions or comments on this item before you? Okay. Hearing none. Other business, colleagues. Any public comment in our respective locations? I have no one here for general public comment. How about Supervisor Rutherford? No one? Okay.
She has a comment.
Thank you, sorry, I didn't get my mute on quick enough, or off quick enough to ask my question. Wondered about, the air filters for the community around the San Bernardino BNSF yard. We've talked about that a couple times, just wondered if staff could give me an update on where we are in looking at some funding for that.
Yes, Supervisor. So we've been in discussion with the California Air Resources Board. They've indicated to us that they regularly receive settlement monies. And so we are going to submit a proposal to them on doing air filters around the San Bernardino. And when supplemental projects come up, we'll target that as one of the programs.
Great, thank you for that.
Sorry, Janice, for the oversight. You're about to go do a little song and dance like a YMCA. Look at me, don't forget about me. Okay, again, so no one with Supervisor Rutherford. Diamond Bar, anyone there to speak on general public comment on a non-agenda item? Come forward.
No, it looks not.
None.
Great, have a blessed weekend. Sorry for the technical difficulties here, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.